Okay, so let's read a short story by Anton Chekhov, The Beggar. I have sourced this short story from a book, Immortal Stories, edited by Ruskin Bond, and I've sourced this particular PDF from a site named Arvind Gupta Toys. But before beginning, I would like to share one news article that I read today and found it very special. It's about a rescued bonded laborer who built school for underprivileged children. Having emerged as a role model for the tribal community, a survivor of bonded labor and trafficking has established a community school for underprivileged children at his native village in Rajasthan's Rajsamund district. The school is catering to children in the age group of 4 to 16 years who have been deprived of the benefits of formal education system. Khemraj Gemiti, who supervises the school's functioning from a building of the Pachamata village panchayat, was confined to a brick kiln along with his wife and a daughter in a neighboring village for 4 years. The family was forced to work because of Mr. Gameti's failure to return rupees 40,000 rupees, which he had borrowed from the brick kiln's owner to repay some of his debts. And then Mr. Khemraj was rescued after a raid which was done by subdivisional magistrate and the police in 2016. And after that, he conducted a village survey, and then he understood the requirements of the children. And with the help of an NGO, the name of the NGO is Udaipur-based Gayatri Seva Sansthan, and as part of its Sikshalay project, he started this school. Now, this was a very inspiring piece of news that I read today. So let's start with this book. First of all, about Immortal Stories, edited by Ruskin Bond. This is an anthology of stories by some of the world's greatest writers of short stories. It has been compiled by India's greatest writer of fiction for children, Ruskin Bond. Due to years of interaction with children and his deep knowledge of English literature, he has put together a variety of themes and writing styles. There is adventure and mystery, there is humor and pathos, there is the joy of life and the pain of death. So, we'll try to read as much as we can. So, let's read this preface. In some ways, the lives of Indian children aren't very different from anywhere else. Their aspirations, what gives pleasure or sorrow, are universal. Sad to acknowledge, though, in this age of media, entertainment, and telecommunications, there is not enough exposure to classical literature for the children of India. I have been writing for children for the last so many years. However, over the past few years, through my numerous interactions with children, I have sadly come to realize that classic literature is an unknown entity for today's generation. So I have ventured to put together a set of some of the most loved classic stories with a smattering of a few modern ones. It is anticipated that this compilation of short stories of different literary genres will meet the expectations and demands of the teachers and students alike. So there are 15 short stories in this. Let's read the first one, The Beggar by Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov was born in Russia. In 1879, he joined his family in Moscow and immediately started his medical studies. He supported the family by writing brief comedies and short stories during his days as a medical student at the University of Moscow. After graduating in 1884 with a degree in medicine, he began to freelance as a journalist and writer of comic sketches. Early in his career, he mastered the form of the one-act play and produced several masterpieces, including The Bear and The Wedding. He produced some hilarious one-act plays, but his reputation as a great dramatist came only after he wrote some full-length tragedies. In fact, it was not until the Moscow Art Theatre's production of The Seagull that Chekhov enjoyed his first overwhelming success. In 1899, Chekhov gave the Moscow Art Theatre a revised version of The Wood Demon, now titled Uncle Vanya, The Three Sisters, and The Cherry Orchard. He died of tuberculosis on July 14, 1904, at the age of 44, in a German health resort. Since his death, Chekhov's plays have gained great popularity worldwide, and he is considered the greatest Russian storyteller and dramatist of modern times. About the story, Anton Chekhov's short stories are popular for their sudden, unexpected twists in the end. In The Beggar, the protagonist, who gives himself the credit of putting a man on the right path, is surprised when told that it actually was his ill-tempered cook who sets the beggar right. The advocate Skvortsov looked at the ragged, fawn-colored overcoat of the suppliant, at his dull, drunken eyes, at the red spot on either cheek, and it seemed to him as if he had seen this man somewhere before. I have now had an offer of a position in the province of Kaluga, the mendicant went on, but I haven't the money to get there. Help me kindly. I am ashamed to ask, but I am obliged to by circumstances. Skvortsov's eyes fell on the man's overshoes, one of which was high and the other low, and he suddenly remembered something. Look here, it seems to me I met you the day before yesterday in Sadovaya Street, he said. But you told me then that you were a student who had been expelled and not a village school teacher. Do you remember? No, that can't be so, mumbled the beggar, taken aback. I am a village school teacher, and if you like, I can show you my papers. Have done with lying. You called yourself a student and even told me that you had been expelled for. Don't you remember? Skvortsov flushed and turned from the ragged creature with an expression of disgust. This is dishonesty, my dear sir, he cried angrily. This is swindling. I shall send the police for you. Damn you. Even if you are poor and hungry, that does not give you any right to lie brazenly and shamelessly. The waif caught hold of the door handle and looked furtively round the antechamber like a detected thief. I am not lying, he muttered. I can show you my papers. Who would believe you? Skvortsov continued indignantly. Don't you know that it's a low, dirty trick to exploit the sympathy which society feels for village school teachers and students? It's revolting. Skvortsov lost his temper and began to berate the mendicant unmercifully. The impudent lying of the ragamuffin offended what he, Skvortsov, most prized in himself. His kindness, his tender heart, his compassion for all unhappy beings. That lie, an attempt to take advantage of the pity of its subject, seemed to him to profane the charity which he liked to extend to the poor out of the purity of his heart. At first, the waif continued to protest innocence, but soon he grew silent and hung his head in confusion. Sir, he said, laying his hand on his heart, the fact is, I was lying. I am neither a student nor a school teacher. All that was a fiction. Formerly, I sang in a Russian choir and was sent away for drunkenness. But what else can I do? I can't get along without lying. No one will give me anything when I tell the truth. With truth, a man would starve to death or die of cold for lack of a lodging. You reason justly, I understand you. But what can I do? What can you do? You ask what you can do, cried Skvortsov, coming close to him. Work. That's what you can do. You must work. Work, yes, I know that myself, but where can I find work? By God, you judge harshly, cried the beggar with a bitter laugh. Where can I find manual labor? It's too late for me to be a clerk because in trade one has to begin as a boy. No one would ever take me for a potter because they wouldn't order me about. They couldn't order me about. No factory would have me because for that one has to know a trade and I know none. Nonsense, you always find some excuse. How would you like to chop wood for me? I wouldn't refuse to do that. But in these days, even skilled woodcutters find themselves sitting without bread. Huh, loafers all talk that way. As soon as an offer is made, you refuse it. Will you come and chop wood for me? Yes, sir, I will. Very well. We'll soon find out. Splendid, we'll see. Squatsov hastened along, rubbing his hand, not without a feeling of malice, and called his cook out of the kitchen. Here, Olga, he said, take this gentleman into the woodshed and let him chop wood. The tatterdemalion scarecrow shrugged his shoulders as if in perplexity and went irresolutely after the cook. It was obvious from his gait that he had not consented to go and chop wood because he was hungry and wanted work, but simply from pride and shame, because he had been trapped by his own words. It was obvious too that his strength had been undermined by vodka, and that he was unhealthy and did not feel the slightest inclination for toil. Skvortsov hurried into the dining room. From its windows, one could see the woodshed and everything that went on in the yard. Standing in the window, Skvortsov saw the cook and the beggar come out into the yard by the back door and make their way across the dirty snow to the shed. Olga glared wrathfully at her companion, shoved him aside with her elbow, unlocked the shed, and angrily banged the door. We probably interrupted the woman over her coffee, thought Skvortsov. What an ill-tempered creature. Next he saw the pseudo student seat himself on a log and become lost in thought with his red cheeks resting on his fists. The woman flung down an axe at his feet, spat angrily, and judging from the expression of her lips, began to scold him. The beggar irresolutely pulled a billet of wood toward him, set it up between his feet, and tapped it feebly with the axe. The billet wavered and fell down. The beggar again pulled it to him, blew on his freezing hands, and tapped it with his axe cautiously, as if afraid of hitting his overshoe or of cutting off his finger. The stick of wood again fell to the ground. Skvortsov's anger had vanished, and he now began to feel a little sorry and ashamed of himself for having set a spoiled, drunken, sick man to work at menial labor in the cold. Well, never mind, he thought, going into his study from the dining room. I did it for his own good. An hour later, Olga came in and announced that the wood had all been chopped. Good, give him half a ruble, said Skvortsov. If he wants to, he can come back and cut wood on the first day of each month. We can always find work for him. On the first of the month, the waif made his appearance and again earned half a ruble, although he could barely stand on his legs. From that day on, he often appeared in the yard, and every time work was found for him. Now he would shovel snow, now put the woodshed in order, now beat the dust out of rugs and mattresses. Every time he received from 20 to 40 kopecks, and once even a pair of old trousers were sent out to him. When Skvortsov moved into another house, he hired him to help in the packing and hauling of the furniture. This time, the waif was sober, gloomy, and silent. He hardly touched the furniture and walked behind the wagons, hanging his head, not even making a pretense of appearing busy. He only shivered in the cold and became embarrassed when the carters jeered at him for his idleness, his feebleness, and his tattered fancy overcoat. After the moving was over, Skvortsov sent for him. Well, I see that my words have taken effect, he said, handing him a rubble. Here's for your pains. I see you are sober and have no objection to work. What is your name? Lushkov. Well, Lushkov, I can now offer you some other cleaner employment. Can you write? I can. Then take this letter to a friend of mine tomorrow and you will be given some copying to do. Work hard, don't drink, and remember what I have said to you. Goodbye. Pleased at having put a man on the right path, Skvortsov tapped Lushkov kindly on the shoulder and even gave him his hand at parting. Lushkov took the letter and from that day forth came no more to the yard for work. 2 years went by. Then one evening, as Skvortsov was standing at the ticket window of a theatre paying for his seat, he noticed a little man beside him with a coat collar of curly fur and a sealskin cap. This little individual timidly asked the ticket seller for a seat in the gallery and paid for it in copper coins. Lushkov, is that you? Cried Skvortsov, recognizing in the little man his former wood chopper. How are you? What are you doing? How is everything with you? All right, I am a notary now and get 35 rubles a month. Thank heaven, that's fine. I am delighted for your sake. I am very, very glad, Lushkov. You see, you are my godson. In a sense, I gave you a push along the right path, you know. Do you remember what a roasting I gave you, huh? I nearly had you sinking into the ground at my feet that day. Thank you, old man, for not forgetting my words. Thank you too, said Lushkov. If I hadn't come to you, then I might still have been calling myself a teacher or a student to this day. Yes, by flying to your protection, I dragged myself out of a pit. I'm very glad indeed. Thank you for your kind words and deeds. You talked splendidly to me then. I am very grateful to you and to your cook. God bless that good and noble woman. You spoke finely then, and I shall be indebted to you to my dying day. But strictly speaking, it was your cook Olga who saved me. How is that? Like this. When I used to come to your house to chop wood, she used to begin, Oh, you sort, you. Oh, you miserable creature, there's nothing for you but ruin. And then she would sit down opposite me and grow sad, look into my face and weep. Oh, you unlucky man, there is no pleasure for you in this world and there will be none in the world to come. You drunkard, you will burn in hell. Oh, you unhappy one. And so she would carry on, in that strain. I can't tell you how much misery she suffered, how many tears she shed for my sake. But the chief thing was, she used to chop the wood for me. Do you know, sir, that I did not chop one single stick of wood for you? She did it all. Why this saved me, why I changed, why I stopped thinking at the sight of her, I cannot explain. I only know that, owing to her words and noble deeds, a change took place in my heart. She set me right, and I shall never forget it. However, it is time to go now. There goes the bell. Lushkov bowed and departed to the gallery. So, this was The Beggar by Anton Chekhov. Now, I think we should read about this story later